What happens when an entitled duchess meets America's sweetheart on live television? Buckle up, what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. This is the story of how Meghan Markle ended up getting herself thrown off the Drew Barrymore Show in what can only be described as one of the most explosive celebrity meltdowns ever caught on camera. The producers tried to bury the footage, but the truth finds a way out. Make sure you subscribe and leave a comment below, because this story has more twists than a soap opera. It was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance. Meghan had a new lifestyle brand to push, and Drew's show was the perfect platform for the kind of warm, fuzzy interview that usually makes everyone feel good. The studio was packed with fans, the lighting was perfect, and Drew Barrymore was doing what she does best, being genuinely enthusiastic about her guest. "I am so excited to have you here today." Drew beamed as she settled into her chair across from Meghan. "Your journey from actress to duchess to entrepreneur's incredible." Meghan smiled, the practiced expression honed over years of red carpets and royal events. "Thank you so much for having me, Drew. I've always admired your authenticity." The word authenticity seemed to hang in the air a beat too long. Ever the professional, Drew moved into her prepared questions about Meghan's latest venture. But there was something in Meghan's tone that felt calculated, rehearsed. "So, tell us about your new brand," Drew continued, her voice warm. "What inspired you to launch this line of products?" Meghan launched into a clearly rehearsed pitch about empowerment and sustainability. But the delivery felt cold, almost corporate. The audience, buzzing moments before, sensed the shift. "That's wonderful," Drew said gently when Meghan paused. "But I have to ask, our viewers are curious about your life now. How are you finding your new chapter outside of royal duties?" The question was innocent, exactly the kind a good publicist anticipates. But something flickered across Meghan's face, a flash of irritation she didn't quite hide. "Well, Drew," she said, her smile tightening, "I think it's important we focus on the positive work I'm doing now, rather than dwelling on the past." "Of course." "Absolutely," Drew replied, sensing the tension but trying to navigate around it. "I just think our audience connects with personal stories, the struggles, the growth, all of that." "I understand what you're trying to do," Meghan said, an edge now in her voice. "But I came here to talk about my brand, not to be psychoanalyzed on daytime television." The studio fell silent. This wasn't the warm chat anyone expected. Drew's eyes widened slightly, but she recovered like a seasoned host. "I'm sorry if it came across that way," she said sincerely. "That wasn't my intention. I love hearing about people's journeys, especially when they've overcome challenges." "Overcome challenges," Meghan repeated, her voice rising just enough to make the audience shift in their seats. "I think you have the wrong idea about my story, Drew." In the control room, producers were likely panicking. This was live TV, and their usually composed guest was starting to unravel. "I don't think I do," Drew said carefully. Leaving royal life couldn't have been easy. Starting over in a new country with your family. Starting over. Meghan's laugh was sharp, humorless. "Drew, I think you've been reading too many tabloids. My life isn't some sob story for your audience to feel sorry about." The tension was now so thick you could cut it with a knife. Drew's natural empathy clashed with Meghan's defensive wall, and neither seemed willing to back down. "I never said it was a sob story," Drew replied, still gentle, a hint of steel beneath. "I was actually trying to celebrate your strength." "My strength?" Meghan scoffed. "You want to talk about strength? Let's talk about the strength it takes to sit here while you try to turn my appearance into a trauma-bonding session." The audience was completely silent, watching the train wreck unfold in real time. Drew looked genuinely hurt. Her famous emotiveness made it impossible to hide it. "Meghan, I think there's been a misunderstanding," Drew said, her voice wavering slightly. "I would never try to exploit anyone's personal struggles. That's not who I am, isn't it though?" Meghan shot back. Isn't that exactly what daytime television is, getting people to open up about their pain so your viewers can feel better about their own lives? The words landed like a slap. Drew Barrymore, beloved for her warmth and openness, had just been accused of exploitation on her own show. The hurt on her face was unmistakable. "I think," Drew said quietly, "we should take a commercial break." But Meghan wasn't finished. "No, let's not take a break. Let's address this right now. You invited me here under the pretense of promoting my work, but all you want is to dig into my personal life like I'm some kind of curiosity." The control room was chaos. The director frantically signaled to cut to commercial, but the cameras kept rolling. It was television gold, also a complete disaster. "That's not true," Drew said, her voice steadier now. "I ask personal questions because I believe in human connection. I share my own struggles because I think it helps people feel less alone." "How noble of you," Meghan said, dripping sarcasm. "St. Drew helping all the lonely people by getting celebrities to cry on television." The cruelty shocked the room. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. Meghan was attacking everything Drew and her show stood for. Drew took a breath. When she spoke again, her voice was steady but cold. "I think you should leave." The words struck like thunder. Drew Barrymore, the hallmark of kindness, had just told a guest to get off her show. "Excuse me?" Meghan's voice was indignant. "You're kicking me off because I won't play along with your little therapy session. I'm asking you to leave because you're being cruel and disrespectful, not just to me, but to what this show represents." "What this show represents?" Meghan laughed bitterly, rising to her feet. "This show represents exactly what's wrong with American media. You parade people's pain for entertainment and call it healing. The audience frozen, sure whether to clap, boo, or sit in stunned silence. Some filmed on their phones despite the no recording policy. It would be everywhere within minutes." "That's enough," Drew said firmly. "Security, please escort Ms. Markle from the building." Before security moved, Meghan raised a hand. "Don't you dare treat me like some common troublemaker. Do you know who you're talking to?" "Yes," Drew replied softly. "Someone who came on my show and chose to be nasty instead of kind. And that's all I need to know about who you are." The simplicity of it only enraged Meghan more. "Nasty? I'm telling you the truth about your exploitative format, and you call me nasty." "You attacked me personally," Drew shot back, her voice rising for the first time. "You questioned my integrity and motives when all I did was try to have a conversation." "A conversation?" Meghan scoffed. "You wanted me to break down and cry so your audience could feel superior. That's not conversation. That's manipulation." Drew's eyes filled, but her voice stayed firm. "I have never tried to make anyone feel bad on this show. I share my own pain so people know they're not alone in theirs." "How convenient," Meghan sneered. "The host who cries gets to make millions while pretending to care about other people's problems." A gasp rippled through the audience. Some stood to leave. The moment had turned from uncomfortable to ugly. "Get out," Drew said barely above a whisper, but with more authority than a shout. "Get out of my studio, now." "I'm not going anywhere until I've said what I came to say," Meghan declared, turning to the cameras. "America needs to understand what kind of person you really are. Drew Barrymore." The camera operators glanced between the director and the stage. No one knew whether to keep filming or cut the feed. "What kind of person am I?" Drew asked, wiping her eyes. "Please, enlighten us." "You're a fraud," Meghan said coldly. "You built your career on being damaged and vulnerable. Now you make money by getting others to be damaged and vulnerable on TV." "That's not true," Drew replied, her voice cracking. "I share my story so people know pain doesn't have to define you, that you can heal, grow, and still be happy." "Spare me the inspirational speech," Meghan waved dismissively. You're no different from any other talk show host who feeds on other people's misery." The audience had heard enough. A boo rose from the back and spread. Meghan turned on them, her expression pure disdain. "Oh, please," she said to the crowd. "You're booing me for telling the truth. This is exactly the mob mentality driving what's wrong with this country." "Leave the audience out of this," Drew said sharply. "They didn't do anything to you." "They're part of the problem," Meghan shot back. "Sitting there, consuming other people's pain as entertainment. It's sick. You know what's sick?" Drew's voice was stronger now, fueled by real anger. Coming on someone's show as a guest and then attacking them and their audience for no reason. No reason. Meghan turned back to Drew, eyes blazing. "You ambushed me with personal questions when I came here specifically to promote my business. I asked how you were doing in your new life," Drew said incredulously. "That's hardly an ambush. It's a setup," Meghan insisted. "You knew exactly what you were doing. Get me talking about the royal family, leaving England, all the drama. I'm not playing that game. Then why come on the show at all?" Drew asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "If you hate what I do so much, why agree to be here?" Meghan paused as if she hadn't expected the question. "Because I thought you might be different. I thought you'd actually want to talk about the work I'm doing, the positive impact I'm trying to make." "I did want to talk about that," Drew said, almost pleading. "I asked about your brand. I was interested in your work. But when I tried to connect it to your personal journey, you attacked me." "Personal journey?" Meghan mocked. "There's that therapist speak again. Can't you have a normal conversation without psychoanalyzing everyone?" "I wasn't psychoanalyzing you," Drew protested. "I was trying to understand you as a person, not just a brand representative." "Maybe I don't want to be understood by you," Meghan said coldly. "Maybe I just want to be respected enough to discuss my work without baring my soul for your entertainment." Drew stared for a long beat. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but firm. "Respect is earned, Meghan, and, right now, you're not earning it." The studio went silent. Even the crew seemed to stop moving. It was clear the eternal optimist had reached her limit. "How dare you lecture me about respect when you've disrespected me since I walked out here?" Meghan snapped. "I welcomed you warmly," Drew said, voice gaining strength. "I introduced you with genuine enthusiasm. I asked thoughtful questions about your work and your life. You repaid that by insulting me, my show, and my audience." "Thoughtful questions?" Meghan laughed harshly. "You wanted me to trauma dump on national television and call that thoughtful." "I wanted you to be human," Drew said simply. "Apparently, that's too much to ask." The accusation hung like poison. Drew's face went pale. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. Then something hardened. "Too much to ask," Drew repeated slowly. "You know what, Meghan? You're right. Apparently asking you to be a decent human being is too much." The audience erupted in applause, but Meghan pressed on. "Decent human being. You're calling me indecent because I won't participate in your emotional manipulation. I'm calling you indecent because you came into my house and attacked me for trying to be kind." Drew shot back, voice stronger than at any point. "You turned a simple interview into a battlefield for no reason except your own ego." "My ego?" Meghan's voice climbed. "You're the one who can't handle being called out for what you really are." "And what am I really?" Drew asked, stepping closer. "Please tell everyone." Meghan looked straight into the camera, expression cold and calculated. "You're a has-been child star who never grew up, clinging to relevance by turning other people's pain into content." The studio went dead silent. Even the crew looked stunned. This was no longer rudeness. It was character assassination on live TV. Drew stood perfectly still. When she spoke, her voice was eerily calm. "Security. Remove her from my studio. Now." Meghan held up her hand, backing from the approaching guards. "Don't touch me. I'm not some common criminal." "No," Drew said quietly. "Common criminals usually have better manners." The burn landed so cleanly that several audience members gasped. The shift in the room was palpable. Meghan's face flushed with rage. "You think you're clever? You think your little quips make you better than me?" "I think my behavior today makes me better than you," Drew replied simply. "I try to be kind. You chose to be cruel. That's the difference between us, kind." Meghan laughed bitterly. "You call ambushing your guests with personal questions kind. I call treating my guests with warmth and interest kind," Drew countered. "Something you clearly don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Meghan snapped. "I understand you're jealous of anyone who's actually accomplished something meaningful." The accusation was so outrageous that several audience members started booing again. Drew raised a hand to quiet them, her expression now composed. "Meaningful?" Drew asked quietly. "Tell me, Meghan, what's meaningful about coming on someone's show just to tear them down?" "I'm exposing the truth about your exploitative format," Meghan declared, as if performing a public service. "The only thing you're exposing is your own character," Drew replied. "And it's not a pretty sight." Meghan's eyes flashed. "How dare you judge my character when you know nothing about my life?" "I know what I've seen today," Drew said firmly. "I invited you with respect and enthusiasm, and you repaid that by being nasty and cruel. That tells me everything I need to know." "You don't know what it's like to be constantly attacked by the media," Meghan said, her voice turning self-pitying. "You don't know what it's like to have every word twisted and used against you." "Actually, I do," Drew said quietly. "I've been in this business since I was 7. I've lived through addiction, divorce, and family drama all in public. The difference is, I didn't let it make me bitter." The comparison struck a nerve. Meghan's composure cracked. "Don't you dare compare your little Hollywood problems to what I've been through." "What you've been through?" Drew's voice rose. "You married into one of the most privileged families in the world, had a fairy tale wedding, and complained when it wasn't perfect while you stand here attacking me for trying to connect with you as a person. Privilege." Meghan shrieked. "You have no idea what I sacrificed, what I gave up." "I know what you're giving up right now," Drew said coldly. "Your dignity, your reputation, and any chance of being welcomed back on this show." The finality in Drew's tone seemed to register. Meghan looked around at the hostile audience, the crew's hardened faces, the security waiting to escort her out. "Fine," she said, trying to recover. "I don't need this. I'm not here to beg for approval from people who don't matter." "Then leave," Drew said simply. "Just leave." Meghan gathered what remained of her dignity and started toward the exit, then paused for a final shot. "You'll regret this, Drew. When the truth comes out about what really happened, you'll regret treating me this way." Drew watched her go. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the studio. "The only truth is what everyone just witnessed. You came here as my guest and chose to be cruel. That's your truth, Meghan. Own it." Meghan stopped at the door and turned back. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Drew replied firmly. "Security, please make sure she leaves the building." As Meghan was escorted out, the audience erupted in applause. Drew stood for a moment, shaken but resolute she had protected her dignity and her show. When the applause faded, Drew looked into the camera, her trademark warmth returning despite everything. "Well," she said with a shaky laugh, "that wasn't exactly what we planned for today." The audience laughed, grateful for a moment of levity after the intense confrontation. "I want to apologize to everyone who came expecting a normal interview," Drew continued. "I never want my show to be a place where people feel attacked or uncomfortable, but I won't allow anyone to come into this space and be cruel to me or to you." The audience applauded again. this time with genuine affection for their host, who had revealed a side of herself they'd never seen. "I believe in kindness," Drew said, her voice stronger. "I believe in giving people the benefit of the doubt. But I also believe in standing up for what's right, and what happened here today wasn't right." She paused, looking at the audience and her crew, everyone who had lived through the surreal moment with her. "Tomorrow we'll be back to our regular programming," she said with a smile. "But today, I hope we all learned something about the importance of treating each other with respect." The show ended with Drew waving to the audience, bruised but unbroken. And as the credits rolled, everyone knew they'd witnessed something that would be discussed for years. So what do you think? Was Drew right to ask Meghan to leave, or should she have tried harder to salvage the interview? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more celebrity stories you won't believe until you hear them.